Golden State Warriors are 3-1 in their last 4 games, and this is great because that's their record so far with Jimmy Butler playing with Stephen Curry and Draymond Green. They had to make a trade here, and they traded Andrew Wiggins and Dennis Schroeder to bring in Jimmy Butler. Now, it was a lot of reports before the season started, and even at the beginning portion of the season, the Golden State Warriors did not want to move off of young players, and they did not want to move off a guy like Andrew Wiggins because they felt like that their future was bright. With guys like B. Pods, you also have Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga. The problem was this. They flamed out very quickly after those first 20 games. And the Golden State Warriors, they hit a major skid. So bad to where they are now the 10th seed in the Western Conference. They're 28-27 on the year. And that could fly in the Eastern Conference, but not in the Western Conference with teams like the Lakers, the Clippers, the Minnesota Timberwolves, Memphis Grizzlies, and Oklahoma City Thunder. It's a gauntlet in the Western Conference, so they had to make a move. And they got desperate over a week and a half ago. They tried to bring in Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant did not want to come back to the Golden State Warriors. They had talks with Paul George, and I'm happy that they did not bring in Paul George. They're trying to bring in Paul George before he went to the Philadelphia 76ers. But the money did not work out, and they had to go out there and trade a couple of pieces. They were not willing to do that. So they went with Jimmy Butler. They didn't settle for Jimmy Butler. They went for Jimmy Butler. And there was a lot of discussions at the time when he signed a contract extension with the Warriors because he wanted to go to the Phoenix Suns. And that was true. But he wanted to lead the Miami Heat in the worst way possible. He comes over to the Golden State Warriors, and he has been tremendous so far. He's shooting over 50% from the field on good efficiency, and he's averaging over 20 points a game. We saw him in his last 5 games with the Miami Heat. He was uninterested, and a lot of that is because he wanted his money, and he made the situation with the Heat very toxic. He was not a terrible basketball player for his entire tenure with the Heat. He got them to the NBA Finals not once, but twice in the last 5 years as a number 1 option. So having him play alongside Stephen Curry, that's a good deal, especially in my opinion, and he's a better player than Andrew Wiggins. You look at Jimmy Butler, he can shoot tremendously from the mid-range. He's a solid 3-point shooter at times, but this is the most important part of his game. He can create his own shot, and he can get to the rack on a consistent basis. That is what the Golden State Warriors were missing. You look at them in the first 2 months of the regular season this year, when they were red hot. Stephen Curry shooting great from 3. The same with Buddy Hield. But Jonathan Kuminga and Draymond Green, they could get to the rack at a consistent basis. They haven't had that in a very long time, especially when Draymond Green went down with his injury and when Jonathan Kuminga went out with an ankle injury, and he is still out right now. So you bring in Jimmy Butler. He's essentially a better version of Draymond Green on the offensive end, and you lessen the workload for Stephen Curry on the offensive end because he's a man that can create his own shot. He can bring the ball up the court, and he can move around with backdoor cuts. That is something the Golden State Warriors have been missing over the last 2 months. And when you add in a guy like Jimmy Butler who can do everything for you, that's a great situation. It's going to be very interesting to see what Steve Kerr is going to do ultimately with Jonathan Kuminga and Jimmy Butler. I do believe that Jonathan Kuminga will possibly be a starter to begin his tenure with Jimmy Butler, and if he doesn't play very well, they may move him back to the bench. But I would like to see a lineup with having Stephen Curry, B. Pods at the 2 position, Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, and Kevon Looney. That's a solid lineup. Is it good enough to win a championship this year? I don't think so. They'll need to bring in another talented big. Someone like a Miles Turner or a Lauri Markkanen who would flourish in this system with Stephen Curry. But when I look at their base players, they should be able to make the NBA playoffs. And if not the playoffs, they should be a play-in tournament team at the worst. They do have a lot of ground to recover. But with them being 3-1 in the last 4 games, it's a lot of good things to look forward to. And I look at Stephen Curry, I expect for him to go out there and continue to string together big-time games. We saw early in the year, he was very inconsistent. One game, he'll go off for 40 points. The next game, he'll give you 11. Then the game after that, he may give you 25 or 30 because he was tired and he is an older player. And basically, it was easy to stop Stephen Curry when you figured out the rest of his team. Trap him at the half court and make someone else beat you. And when Buddy Hield is on, he's on. This is a problem with Buddy Hield. He is so inconsistent. When Buddy Hield can shoot the ball and when he can go out there and make plays for himself, he's a very good basketball player. He's not one of the best players in the league, but he's a very good player. But when he's bad, he's one of the worst players in the NBA. It's the cycle of Buddy Hield. The 76ers, they saw this We saw this with other teams in the past also. And that was the main knack on him coming out of college. Can he be consistent from the 3-point line? And can he be consistent with the playmaking ability? We will see Buddy Hield go out there and have 20 points in a game. And then the next night, 5 points. He may shoot 16%. From the 3-point line, he may have 5 or 6 turnovers. So having Buddy Hield in doses is best for the Golden State Warriors. And adding in that number 2 scoring option alongside Stephen Curry should help elevate the game of everyone else also. And that's what we saw Jimmy Butler do. He helped elevate the game of Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. B-Pods, who is Brandon Podziemski, I think that he's a solid player. He's still not that number 2 guard they're looking for to play alongside Curry. He's averaging 10 points a game, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and he's shooting 42% from the field. It's not the best, but he's a young player. You hope that long-term he can get better. But I'm very excited to see Jonathan Kuminga play with Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. That's a lot of length on the court, and that should be a lot of good defensive playmaking abilities for all 3 of those players. And I will say this, you may run into a problem to where Jonathan Kuminga and Jimmy Butler are just trying to constantly go to the paint. The 3-point shot this year is better for Jonathan Kuminga, but he's only attempting 2 3-point shots a game. He's not going to go out there and shoot the 3 ball like a top 10 3-point shooter. And that's okay. You just have to knock down the threes when you need them the most. And I look at Kuminga. I don't know if he's ready for that just yet. He's more so of a guy that's going to go to the rack, put a lot of pressure on the basket, and shoot from the mid-range, similar to what Jimmy Butler does. But you can run a lot of screens with Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga, and having Stephen Curry just roll around. And we've seen them do this against the Chicago Bulls and against the Milwaukee Bucks. Granted, in that Bucks game, there was no Giannis, but they still went out there and they won that basketball game. In the past, the Golden State Warriors would have found a way to lose that game before they made a trade to bring in Jimmy Butler. So bringing in Jimmy Butler and bringing back Draymond Green from his injury has definitely helped the Golden State Warriors on the offensive end. And I do want to talk about this before I let you guys go. The Dallas Mavericks are going to be a tough team for the Golden State Warriors to beat moving forward because of the threat of Kyrie Irving. That's the only game that they have lost so far with Jimmy Butler. And the reason why they lost that game, Kyrie Irving had 42 points. And we saw Draymond Green switch on him. He couldn't slow down Kyrie Irving. We saw Jimmy Butler switch on him. He couldn't slow him down. If you bring in Jonathan Kuminga, he may be able to go out there and slow down some of that offensive production from a guy like Kyrie Irving. And that's a bad loss for the Warriors because you lost that game. There was no Derek Lively. There was no Anthony Davis. And they were also missing another big man with their roster that's a very good player in terms of rebounding and just having a lot of blocks also. And I'm talking about Daniel Gafford here. So you have to watch that if you're the Golden State Warriors because you may struggle against a lot of teams that have good bigs. And I'm talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder with Chet Holmgren and the same with the Denver Nuggets with Nikola Jokic. But I will also bring over this point. You can't count out Jimmy Butler. I have seen him go out there with undrafted free agents and drag those guys to the NBA Finals. Granted, it was in the Eastern Conference, but he helped elevate the game of those guys like a Caleb Martin, like a Gabe Vincent, like Duncan Robinson. So Jimmy Butler, he's used to being in this situation. And it's not like the Miami Heat have always been a top seed in the Eastern Conference. They're one of those teams you look at, they're the 8th, 9th, or 10th seed heading into the NBA playoffs. So they will have to play in the play-in tournament. They even went to the finals when they were a play-in tournament team. So never underestimate the ability of Jimmy Butler, Stephen Curry, and Draymond Green. They're trying to maximize his window with Stephen Curry over this offseason because I doubt that they will win the championship this year, but it is possible. Put some more pieces in that front court and try to get one last ring out of Draymond Green and Stephen Curry. But so far, so good. You're going to have an all-star break. You're going to have a couple of days off to actually get these guys to gel together. Let's hope that Jonathan Kuminga can come back into the lineup, and you should be okay. And it also helps out the bench production. Gary Payton can come in and be that very good defender. He's not a good three-point shooter. But when I look at Gary Payton, his defense alongside Jimmy Butler, they can run guys off the three-point line and run them off the perimeter. And you can push them more towards the basket with Kevon Looney. And that is what you want. Kevon Looney has showed some big moments in the past, especially against the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals and against teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder in the past. He's a very underrated player in terms of passing the ball out of the paint, setting screens, and just rolling to the rim. He doesn't stand in the way of Draymond Green or Stephen Curry, and he's just one of the better big men that you can have in this system with the Golden State Warriors. So overall, I do have a lot of faith that the Golden State Warriors can turn their season around. They could be a solidified playoff team. It's going to be rough. Like I mentioned before, the Western Conference is just a beast in its entirety. But if it's a team that can go out there and they can shock some people, it'll be the Golden State Warriors. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the Golden State Warriors moving forward with Jimmy Butler? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.